life.
You really can. And, I've been an Alabama fan for decades, and there are always these guys that freshmen and sophomore years that are superstars. And like 5 years later, somebody says, "Hey, did you hear so-and-so is working in the Piggly Wiggly in Demopolis?"
Yeah. Well, that's what we found so shocking. We spoke to former athletes and current athletes like Dominique. They'd tell us about teammates who suffered these terrible injuries and basically had to live with them for the rest of their lives. And no one's paying those medical costs.
I was fortunate enough to have an NFL career and move on to business school afterwards. But I mean, it's a ridiculously minute percentage of people that are able to do that.
So what are the pitfalls, though, of paying the athletes? If it was easy, I think, this would not be as much of an issue.
Well, I think it lies in the incentives. So then there's no incentive to make sure the athletes are taken care of. So the athletes don't have any power. They don't have a voice in the process. The people with the power, I mean, if you're running a business, which essentially they are, you're not looking to pay your labor any more than you have to. And in this case, they don't have to pay them anything. So
and Mika, you always talk about McDonald's and how much McDonald's is making, and they should. And I disagree with you. But the NCAA makes $12 billion a year, more of a profit than McDonald's or Chevron or so many other massive corporations, and they don't pay their players.
Right. Well, the rate of growth of that college sports industry has grown exponentially, and that's what's so remarkable. I think for most people, the NCAA is March Madness and bowl games, which is great. But I think the point of this film was to dig deeper and show people how the system works and how these athletes who are entertaining us every weekend don't have any rights.
So what do you guys say to those that say, well, hey, hold on a second, they're getting a scholarship. My kid's not getting a scholarship. They're getting a scholarship, and they've got the opportunity to go to class and learn if they want to.
They do have the opportunity, but again, it's back to the incentive. So my experience in college, my educational experience was extremely discounted because the incentives for the player is to play well. Incentives for the coaches is for the player to play well, and incentives for the university is to win games because that brings in boosts.
It's not to get you into study.
It's definitely not. So, I mean, I worked hard and was able to get my degree and play in the NFL, but a lot of players don't. There's no one there pushing you. When I tried to select my major, I remember circling all the majors that were important to me, then going to talk to my advisor and her breaking out another list of majors that were realistic for the schedule that I would have to take. So that's what I mean by having a discounted academic experience.
It's also traveling across the country.
Yeah, so we had several Thursday night games in Georgia. So you miss class on Wednesday, you miss class on Thursday, you miss class on Friday.
Yeah, that's not right.
Yeah,
and that doesn't work.
But I mean, yes, it's funny that they put student first because it's obvious that all incentives lie with being an athlete who has to go to class to maintain a scholarship.
It's interesting. I missed a lot of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday classes. I didn't even play football. Sounds fine.
Knowing that critics of paying athletes say, well, it could be a gateway to corruption, has anyone proposed the idea of setting up what are essentially escrow accounts, which means money that are there for students once they graduate, once they achieve some sort of metric academically, that they will be paid, it just wouldn't happen in real time?
Yeah, I think calling it a gateway to corruption is hilarious because the system is already corrupt. So they force or attempt to force people to abide by rules that cannot be measured or cannot actually be followed, and they're unjust. So I'm not sure. One of the things that upsets me about this debate is people like to focus on should they be paid or should they not be paid. Throwing some money at the problem is just a pacifier. The real problem is the players don't have a voice in the process.
Right. Well, that could change. The SEC gets their television network. There's a lot of people think that there's a sort of an unspoken movement to get rid of the NCAA because some of these schools and conferences are more powerful. So maybe the NCAA is going to be forced to do something. And even the Pac-12 commissioner came out and said, you know what? Maybe we should find a minor league system here. So if you really don't want college, you have a path to go try to get to the pros if that's your choice.
And certainly also, I mean, these kids go in there. We were talking yesterday about the kinetic force of the NFL and how violent it is. Take a guy, and of course, my default's always University of Alabama. There's a guy, you all remember him? Tyrone Prothro.
Yeah.
Made the catch of the year the prior year against Florida. He snaps his leg in half. He went from being a guy who would have been a first or second round draft pick to a guy who now, he's a bank teller, last I heard, in Tuscaloosa. What happens to him next? What happens to his health? This guy helped make my university millions and millions of dollars. There needs to be a trust fund to take care of these these kids.
But also the education. I mean, remember, these universities, their priority is education. And I think most of these athletes are concerned with going to the next level, the NFL, the NBA, and maybe after they finish playing, they would appreciate that education even more.
And I can't underscore just quickly how many of these players think they're going to go pro. They all think they're going pro.
That's
everyone.
Schooled. The price of
just like every
college
senator thinks
sports
they're going to be a president.
premieres on